Welcome to the Capstone project. This is where you'll combine all of the knowledge you gained across the React Native program to create a practical mobile application that solves a major problem. Before moving on, let's examine what that problem is. Adrian, the owner of Little Lemon Restaurant, has seen a steady decline of takeout orders across the past several months. After soliciting feedback, he found that many customers prefer the convenience of a mobile application rather than ordering through the phone. As such, Adrian has hired you to create an app that will provide customers with a pleasant and user-friendly experience for ordering food. On the functional side, this entails implementing intuitive navigation and customizability, while behind the scenes, you'll need to consider things such as component layouts and where your data comes from. In this course, you'll be guided on how to address all of these, and you'll finish with a mobile app that could really turn Adrian's fortunes around. This course consists of 3 modules. In the first module, you'll focus on the planning and preparation steps that will set you up for success later. This begins with establishing your project development environment, which includes setting up a repository and creating a proper folder and file structure for working in React Native. You'll also apply UX and UI principles and participate in wireframing to plan out the individual pieces of your app, so you can get a better idea of how they fit together and how users are likely to interact with them. In the next module, you'll turn your attention to the functionality of your app. You'll discover how to design an onboarding process to make users aware of how to use the app and what it is capable of. Then you'll create a navigational flow that makes it easy for users to move from one screen in the app to another, no matter where they are. You will then be guided to set up a food ordering process that allows users to filter the menu page so that they can narrow their search to whichever dishes are the most relevant for them. To implement these features, you'll demonstrate that you know how to fetch data from the network, store data in a database, and render the data within React Native. Finally, you'll move on to the third and final module, which is about assessment. You'll conduct a self-review of your completed app to identify what you did well, in addition to areas for improvement. And then you'll do a similar review on the work of a few of your peers. This process will conclude with a graded assessment that will test your comprehension of the topics covered and the skills applied throughout the course. To wrap things up, you'll find out how to submit your app for publication in the Play Store or App Store. This is an optional step, but it's a nice way to conclude the end-to-end mobile application development process. Now that you know what task lies ahead of you, let's go ahead and dive right in. As a React Native engineer, you'll often work as part of a development team. When joining a project midway, the task of setting up a project from scratch is likely already complete. But what if you are working independently on a personal project? The steps to setting up a project from scratch are important to know. Let's say you've now been assigned to work on Little Lemon's app project and are tasked with building an app for both Android and iOS. The mobile app allows customers to order food online. The restaurant conducted a study and determined that customers found ordering food online via the website difficult. They expressed that they would like to see a solution that is easier to use. So here is where you come in with developing the mobile app to give Little Lemon customers a seamless experience. In this video, you'll start setting up your project so that you can create the app using React Native. You'll then get a preview of the key steps for the rest of the setup procedure, which you'll be guided through across the rest of this lesson. You'll set up a project using Expo, a framework that enables a suite of incredible features for React Native apps. There are 2 sets of tools that are required when developing an Expo. The first is the command line tool called Expo CLI to serve your project. The second tool is a mobile client app called Expo Go, which opens the project on Android and iOS platforms. So, install both tools by referencing the official Expo documentation page at docs.expo.dev. You can also find this link in the additional resources. Once you have both tools up and running, you can initialize a new project by typing the following code in your terminal: npx create-expo-app my-app && cd my-app. Note that my-app in this example serves as a placeholder for the name of the application. The next step is to run the development server with the following command in the terminal: npx expo start. When you run npx expo start, expo CLI starts the Metro bundler. This bundler is a HTTP server that compiles the JavaScript code of your app using Babel and serves it to the Expo app. The command outputs a QR code in the terminal. The next step is to open the Expo Go app on your device. On an Android device, you would press Scan QR Code on the Home tab of the Expo Go app. Then scan the QR code displayed in the terminal. On an iPhone or iPad, open the default Apple Camera app and once again scan the QR code from the terminal. Important aspects to note are recapping version control, setting up the repository with Git to make collaborations easy, or ensuring your work is continuously synced across all machines to prevent any loss as you work independently. The good news is that all projects created with the Expo CLI come with Git set up straight out of the box. Once you configure a remote repository, commit your project code and share your project with others later on. After learning about the importance of using version control, focus on tracking code changes in your repository, combining and organizing code changes, and creating and checking all branches. Additional resources are available to aid you as you learn to commit and push your repository using the terminal or command line interface. Finally, explore and engage with the exercises before testing your knowledge in the quizzes. In this video, you discovered why Expo is a great tool to start up a new React Native application. You unpacked creating a new project with Expo CLI and running the application with Expo Go on your devices. You also understand the importance of a distributed version control system to share your work with your peers. The owners of Little Lemon have discovered that fewer and fewer customers are placing takeout orders by phone. They also conducted a survey which revealed that many of these customers have turned to alternative restaurants as they offer the convenience of ordering through a mobile app. In order to reverse this downward trend, the owners would like to make this option available for Little Lemon customers as well by creating their own app. On top of the base functionality, they want the app to provide a warm and pleasant experience which reflects the service that the restaurant is known for. You can help the owners of Little Lemon achieve this goal by applying the principles of UX/UI, user experience and user interface, when designing the app. In this lesson, you will have a brief recap of the principles of UX/UI covered in a previous course. You will produce the wireframes, some components, and a prototype of the Little Lemon app using Figma. Did you know that several stages make up the UX/UI process? These include the planning, design, development, and launch phases. Arguably, the most crucial stage in this UX/UI process is the planning phase, which includes gathering the user's objectives and goals and determining and mapping the project's overall purpose. The design phase is where designers turn the facts and information from the planning stage into reality. This stage must produce design structures and sketches for approval and testing. Then follows the development phase, where coding and programming tasks are completed, as well as testing. This phase essentially involves the implementation of the results acquired during the previous step, in your case, producing a functional website or mobile application. The product is delivered during the launch phase. You will start by exploring UX and learning how following the UX process will enable you to design an intuitive app for ordering food. Making the app easy to use will likely keep customers coming back to place additional orders in the future. Keep in mind that, because a product can constantly be improved, UX is an iterative process where post-launch feature testing and improvements will last indefinitely. There isn't a specific design process for UI, but it's still crucial. When it's done correctly, customers usually don't even notice it, but if it's not, they will have a negative experience, and most will uninstall the app and not come back. To clarify the purpose of UI and UX, an example of a fantastic UI and bad UX is something that looks lovely but is challenging to use, while something that is incredibly usable but unpleasant to look at is an example of a great UX and poor UI. You will now be taken through the steps to create both a fantastic UX and UI for the food ordering function in this lesson via readings, exercises, and quizzes. Let's get to it. In this module, you have come a long way in taking on the task of designing a food ordering mobile app that will make it easy for customers to order dishes from Little Lemon. You began with an introduction to the course content and the syllabus and had an opportunity to meet your peers. You then moved on to setting up your project to ensure you use the right tools for developing effective and efficient code and ultimately the successful development of your mobile app. You have an IDE or a code editor installed and set up to work with React Native, or perhaps you are using Expo Snack if you prefer to work online. Git is installed on your machine and your GitHub account is set up, allowing you to add a remote repository for your code. The principles of UX and UI have been revisited, and your UX-UI process has been established. The scope and the project's purpose have been defined by gathering the user's objectives and goals. You have begun the UX-UI process using Figma, a highly scalable design tool based on vectors. Its browser-based architecture is clever enough to save your work as you go and even continue working if your internet connection is briefly lost. You designed the project wireframes using Figma, which clarified the food ordering flow for the Little Lemon mobile app. During this lesson, usability was pushed to the forefront and your page layouts were showcased. The app's functionality and layout, as well as creative and branding aspects, were addressed one at a time, allowing the owners and the app users to provide early feedback, saving you time in the long run. Components have been created in Figma, elements you are able to reuse across your design, helping you to create and manage consistency in your proposed solution for ordering food. You also fleshed out your wireframes using Little Lemon's style guide, enhancing them with brand color, adding images, buttons, and text, and making them interactive. Since UX is an iterative process based on user and client feedback, you may also have had to iterate at this stage. In this process, your ideas are constantly refined as you move toward a more satisfactory design solution. Having set up your coding environment and a set of designs for the project created, you are in a fantastic position to begin coding the project. Well done. Have you ever opened a mobile app for the first time only to find yourself confused about where to go next or unsure of the app's features? If you have, then you likely encountered an example of poor UX. In such cases, users tend to uninstall the app, leave a poor review, or search for an alternative app. Not the outcome you want as a developer. One way you can reduce the odds of these things happening is to create a great onboarding experience for your app. In this lesson, you'll get a general overview of what onboarding is, and you'll explore a few common onboarding flows. You'll also get a preview of what to expect across this lesson. Onboarding is the first point of entry into the app at first launch after installation. Its main point is to get the user familiar with the features of the app. This is the point when you introduce the user to key features by using visual guides and simple UI elements before getting into the main app screen. While most onboarding flows are about introducing the user to key features, others will simply walk them through how to set up a profile or some other customization. There are also some flows that cover the benefits of using the app or the type of data you are giving out by using the app. Now that you have a better idea of what an onboarding flow is, let's observe an example of one in action. Across these screens, the user is instructed to set up their profile. Notice the large font, casual language, and how tasks are presented one at a time. This makes things really clear, right? In this lesson, you'll be guided to create your own onboarding flow for the Little Lemon mobile app. Before you do so, you'll have a recap on UI elements and how to use them to convey a particular look and feel. Expect to explore the use of labels, buttons, progress bars, tooltips, checklists, and more. Together, such elements can help a user understand what they have accomplished and what they have left to do, or direct them to the right place to find help whenever they might need it. You will also revisit how to store data in the disk so that you can save user login details, reservations, and so on. Since the onboarding experience should only happen on the first launch of the app after install, you'll need to use a library such as async storage to check on such data and tell the app to respond appropriately. The number of steps in an onboarding process depends on several things, but the number of app features and their complexity are major deciding factors. Keep in mind that in addition to the aforementioned elements, you will also need to navigate through each step of the onboarding flow. To help you do just that, this lesson will finish with a recap on navigation. Navigation allows you to move across the planned routes in an app. By leveraging a library like React Navigation, you will be able to move through the different application screens in a smooth and animated fashion. You'll be able to apply everything you learn in some exercises. These will have you set up onboarding pages, the app navigation hierarchy, a profile page, and then commit your progress to Git. In this video, you got an overview of what onboarding is in the context of a mobile app and observed a few examples. You also got a preview of what to expect from the rest of this lesson. By now, you have completed the UX/UI for the Little Lemon mobile app. Keep in mind that this is a constant process and you may change it later, but for now you have what you need to start bringing your app to life. Next, consider what you need to create one of the key functionalities of the app, displaying menu items to users. Before placing an order, the user should be able to view a boldly written name for each menu item, a high-quality image, and a short description of the dish. Also note that these images and data need to come from the network so that the app always displays the most current information. In this lesson, you will find out how to fetch and store the data that you'll need and then render it in the app. You'll also go over best practices for creating a smoother user experience. For example, you'll learn to fetch and display images asynchronously. This is important as it ensures that the task happens in the background and prevents the app from pausing the UI as the images are downloaded. In other words, it gives the user a more seamless experience. After you've added the menu items and their corresponding images, you'll be ready to establish the food ordering flow. To help you with this step, you'll be provided with a flowchart that depicts this process. This flowchart will help you identify and break down important steps while keeping you aware of the bigger picture. Each step in the process is independent and provides a description of what happens at that stage, the input needed, and the expected output. It also helps to lay out a development blueprint and facilitates collaboration with other programmers. Next, you'll get a recap on how to filter data so that this can be applied to the menu items and give the user the ability to customize how information is displayed. To consolidate your knowledge, you'll go through several exercises in addition to the learning material, and you'll wrap things up with a graded quiz that covers the full module. In this video, you got an overview of what is needed for the food ordering flow of the Little Lemon mobile app. Now, let's make it happen. Well done! You've reached the end of this module called Project Functionality. It's time to recall some key lessons learned. You began with an introduction to onboarding flow, which outlines the project components and exercises. You also revisited UI elements and storing data as a refresher. You then partook in an exercise that had you design and implement an onboarding flow for the app, including guiding the user to enter their name and email address. Next, you recapped on navigation. Here, you implemented a flow for navigating from the onboarding to the food menu page. Next, you exercised how to set up a profile page that displays data that the user enters during onboarding. Following on from this, you familiarized yourself with the expected project components and exercises in food ordering user flow. You recapped fetching data before implementing fetching the food menu data from an API and storing it in SQLite. Finally, you filtered the data for the food menu items via SQLite. You should now be familiar with project functionality. Well done! You're making good progress on your learning journey. You've finished building the Little Lemon food ordering app and you've arrived at the final module of the course. Well done! Before you take on the final set of tasks, let's recap everything that you've achieved up to this point. You were commissioned by Adrian to design and develop a mobile application for Little Lemon Restaurant that would allow users to navigate the menu and place orders for food. Adrian needed this app to be practical as well as user-friendly, in hopes of boosting sales. A tall task, but you were certainly up to the challenge. To make this all happen, there were several aspects to consider. Functionally, navigation in the app needs to be intuitive, and users should be able to customize the information that is displayed. Additionally, the app's success hinged on careful planning of the layout and sourcing accurate and up-to-date data from the network. Fortunately, the first 2 modules of the course provided the step-by-step guidance to make this happen. In Module 1, you established your development environment, which included setting up a repository to store various iterations of your code and determining a logical folder and file structure to enable a faster and more accurate workflow. You also applied principles of UX and UI in designing the app and completed a wireframing exercise to help ensure that all the pieces fit together correctly before continuing with the development of the app. After figuring out the core design of the app and how to approach it, you proceeded to write the app's functional code in the second module. This included designing an onboarding process to facilitate user awareness of the app's functions and capabilities, and creating a navigational flow that supports multiple scenarios for moving between screens. You then proceeded to create a food ordering interface that had convenience in mind, such as enabling users to apply filtering functionality to display specific menu items instead of the full list. To make this work, you had to fetch data from the network, store data in a database, and render the data within React Native. And now you've arrived at the final module of the course, which will assess both your work and your understanding of the content. Your first task will be to conduct a self-review of your app, where you can give an honest judgment of what you are proud of, as well as identifying the things you could do better next time. This will be followed by a mutual peer review activity. Here, you'll get a chance to examine and review the projects completed by your peers. It's a great opportunity to learn about different approaches to the same project, and others will do the same with yours. Next comes the graded assessment, which takes the form of a quiz with questions about all topics and skills that were relevant to the creation of your app. An optional final task, should you choose to partake, is to publish your app in the Play Store or App Store, where it can be downloaded by users worldwide. You're almost at the finish line, so let's keep moving. Best of luck with this final part of your React Native journey. So you've finished building the food ordering app for Little Lemon, and Adrian is pleased with the functionality of the app, as well as the usability and look and feel. You're probably beyond ready to get the app up on a platform where it can be downloaded onto the devices of Little Lemon customers. But you should know that there is actually quite a bit more to getting an app online than just simply pressing an upload button. It calls for a multi-step process to ensure that your app meets technical requirements of the target devices, as well as the standards set by the platform provider. In this video, you will receive a general overview of the steps for submitting a mobile application to the Google Play Store, where it can be downloaded by Android users. These steps will be covered in greater detail over the course of this lesson. The steps include building and testing your app, preparing the app for submission, submitting the app, and implementing app updates. Next, let's briefly explore each of these steps so you know what to expect. For the building and testing phase, you'll learn how to export your code from Expo as a ready-to-run build known as an Expo Application Services or EAS build. This will put you in position to verify that your app works as expected by testing the build on a simulator or device. Next, you'll need to prepare your app for submission. This entails configuring and bundling the build into a specialized format that works for the Play Store. You'll also want to make sure that the app aligns with the Google Play Store guidelines. If everything checks out, then you'll be ready to submit your app. Note that to be able to do so, you'll need to have a Google Play developer account. Finally, even after your app is published, there is one more thing to address: updates. Devices, operating systems, and standards change all the time, and if you want to keep your app running optimally, you need to make sure that users are getting current builds. Fortunately, you'll find out how to do just that. So there you have it. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a stronger understanding of what it takes to get your app onto the Play Store so that others can download and enjoy it. By now, your app functionality is complete, and your users are eager to get their hands on it. However, as a developer, it's important to have other people test your application. Therefore, you will typically need to build your app to be shared and installed on devices. In this video, you are going to learn about how to turn your projects into a file format that is ready to be uploaded to either Google Play Stores or the Apple App Store. Note that while you may have been using Snack throughout this course to build your app, here you'll be guided to use Expo CLI to create your final build. When you work with Expo, the online Snack editor is an environment that is straightforward when developing an Expo application. The Snack environment eliminates the task of you performing any Expo configuration. It hides several files among other details so that you can focus on your app requirements. Let's begin by exporting your Snack project into a fully fledged Expo application. To do that, select the Download as Zip button in the top right corner. This outputs a zip file. Now unzip the file to gain access to the Expo project filled with files you can use, even outside Snack. Great. It's important to note that Expo works hard to simplify the building process for React Native applications. It creates its own solution called EAS Build. EAS stands for Expo Application Services. It comprises several integrated cloud services for Expo applications, and EAS is one of them. So what is EAS Build? EAS Build is a hosted service for building app binaries for Expo and bare React Native projects. Now, let's outline some of the key aspects of EAS Build. EAS Build provides sensitive defaults or opted-in configuration values that work well for Expo and React Native projects. It's also capable of managing your app signing credentials. Finally, EAS allows you to seamlessly share your project builds with your team via internal distribution. Now you're ready to dive in by getting started with your EAS build. First, install the latest EAS CLI to interact with EAS services from your terminal. To do that, run the following command: npm install -g EAS-CLI. Now log in to your Expo account if you haven't done so already and run the following command: EAS login. Skip this step if you have already logged in earlier. The next step is to configure the project by running the following command: EAS build:configure. This prompts you with different options. Since it's your first time setting up EAS Build, you'll need to complete some additional steps. When faced with the prompt to automatically create an EAS project, type yes. When prompted with "Would you like us to run git init for you?" again, type yes. EAS Build needs an existing Git repository to work with. If you have one already, you can skip this step. The last prompt is, which platforms would you like to configure for EAS Build, and presents the options All, iOS, or Android. Respond by selecting one of the options. At this point, notice that a new file called eas.json is automatically generated. This is great because it means your project is ready to build. Next, let's explore building an APK for Android emulators and devices. In your browser, go to the URL docs.expo.dev/build-reference/apk. You'll also find a link to this in the additional resources. Install the build directly to your Android device or emulator by building an Android package instead of the Android app bundle Google Play Store expects. Recognize that the Android package uses the file extension .apk. To begin building your Android package, open the eas.json file you've already generated to make some changes. There are 3 properties you can add to the build profile: setting the development client property to true, which is the default, setting the build type property to APK, or setting the Gradle command property to either :app::assemble release or :app::assemble debug. In this case, let's go with the default option. Now run your build with the following command: EAS build-p android-profile development. The command triggers a remote build, so wait patiently for a few minutes while it completes. Also, when prompted about credentials, It's recommended to allow EAS Build to manage the key stores files if you haven't created them already. Next, you can choose the name for the profile. In this example, the profile name is Preview. However, you may choose to call it Local, Simulator, or anything else that makes sense to you. Now that you've created your Android package, it's time to install your build using ADB. You might be wondering what ADB is. The Android Debug Bridge, referred to as ADB, is the simplest tool to run your builds in either an emulator or a physical device. If you don't have it installed already, go ahead and follow the steps in the ADB installation link, which is found on the APK page. Alternatively, you can access the link in additional resources. Once your installation is complete, open up your emulator or connect your device to your computer. Ensure that you enable ADB debugging on your device. Once your build is complete, download the APK from the Build Details page or reference the docs.expo.dev link when EAS build is done. Next, run the following command to install the APK: ADB install, followed by the folder path to wherever you downloaded the APK file. This installs your application on either the simulator or the physical device. So, that's it. Now, locate the application on the phone and finally run it. Now you have a preview of what your final application will look like before uploading it to the Google Play Store without any store developer membership account. Next, let's unpack building for iOS simulators. You can find the complete process details on the Build Reference Simulator section on the official documentation webpage. A link to this can be found in the additional resources. Begin by editing the eas.json file. Here, add a new key called iOS to the build.preview path. You can do this by adding a new line beneath preview and typing iOS in quotes, followed by a colon and a set of curly braces. Within these curly braces, type simulator in quotes, colon, and then true. The next step is to install the build in the simulator. If you haven't installed or run the iOS simulator before, follow the iOS simulator guide on the Expo documentation webpage before proceeding. With your build complete, go ahead and download the build from the Build Details page. Alternatively, use the official documentation link on the docs.expo.dev webpage. Then, extract the contents by opening it. Notice you now have a file that resembles myapp.app. Open up the simulator and drag the myapp.app into it. The app installs within a few seconds. Finally, once your app appears on the simulator home screen, tap it to run it. In this video, you learned how to convert your Snack project into a file format that is ready to be uploaded to either Google Play Stores or the Apple App Store. Previously, you learned how to build and test an Expo application in your own simulator or device to ensure the latest version shipped to app users is working as expected. EAS Build allowed you to do this. It's a simple way to prepare and bundle a similar application version to the one that will be uploaded to the Google Play Store. But now it's time to embrace the next step in the pipeline, which is uploading your build into the Google Play Store. Similar to EAS Build, Expo comes with another tool called EAS Submit, which enables you to submit your app binaries to the Android and iOS stores. Binaries are the files in which your source code has been converted into machine-readable code. It's also a hosted service that Expo built to simplify the process and abstract as much complexity as possible. Let's begin by exploring the steps to submit your applications to the Google Play Store. Expo has put together a detailed guide to assist you on this journey, and you can access it via the official documentation link found in the additional resources. Let's start by outlining the prerequisites that need to be completed before you can use the EAS Submit tool. First, a paid Google Play developer account is essential. To acquire the account, follow the link in the Expo documentation. Note that the membership requires a one-time fee which is payable when you publish your first application. Once you have your Google Play developer account, create a Google Service account. This handles app submissions on your behalf and retrieves the JSON key. Once again, this is accessible via the Expo documentation webpage. The third step is to create an app on Google Play Console and upload your app manually at least once. Preparing an Android production build requires a minimum configuration of adding a new key named production to the build section of your eas.json file. Then run the command eas build -p android --profile production to get an AAB file format. AAB stands for Android App Bundle, which is the recommended format for Google Play. It is uploaded manually. Next, ensure you have the EAS CLI installed and that you're logged in. If needed, recall your login details from building and testing your application video. Great. Once you meet all the prerequisites, start the submission by first building a standalone app with EAS build -p android --profile production. The next step is to make sure your eas.json file is configured properly for the production environment. To do so, let's review the various options available to you in the Expo documentation. Observe this code snippet on the eas.json page in the Expo documentation, which depicts a key element that adds a new top-level property called submit. The JSON object under the submit key can contain multiple submit profiles, all arbitrary. This example uses the production profile. Each profile has two additional JSON objects that define a per-platform configuration, Android and iOS. For Android, the most important properties are Service Account Key Path and Track. Service Account Key Path defines the path to the JSON file with the service account key that's used to authenticate with Google Play. That's essentially the second prerequisite outlined earlier. Track refers to the specific Google Play track you want to use to upload the application. This is either production, beta, alpha, or internal. To test the application with a closed group of testers, internal, alpha, or beta are the best suited options because production makes it available to everyone. The final step is to run your terminal with the command eas submit -p android to initiate the submission process. The command is interactive and prompts several options for you to tailor the submission. In this video, you have learned about all the necessary steps to prepare your Expo application for submission to Google Play Store. So, you've finished building the food ordering app for Little Lemon, and Adrian is pleased with the functionality of the app, as well as the usability and the look and feel. You're probably beyond ready to get the app up on a platform where it can be downloaded onto the devices of Little Lemon customers. But you should know that there is actually quite a bit more to getting an app online than just simply pressing an upload button. It calls for a multi-step process to ensure that your app meets technical requirements of the target devices, as well as the standards set by the platform provider. In this video, you will receive a general overview of the steps for submitting a mobile application to the iOS App Store, where it can be downloaded by users of iOS devices. These steps will be covered in greater detail over the course of this lesson. The steps include building and testing your app, preparing the app for submission, submitting the app, and implementing app updates. Next, let's briefly explore each of these steps so you know what to expect. For the building and testing phase, you'll learn how to export your code from Expo as a ready-to-run build known as an Expo Application Services or EAS build. This will put you in position to verify that your app works as expected by testing the build on a simulator or device. Next, you'll need to prepare your app for submission. This step will require you to set up an Apple developer account and to install EAS CLI, a command line interface from which you can define account properties for your configuration. Once that is taken care of, you'll be ready to submit your app. Finally, even after your app is published, there is one more thing to address: updates. Devices, operating systems, and standards change all the time, and if you want to keep your app running optimally, you need to make sure that users are getting current builds. Fortunately, you'll find out how to do just that. So there you have it. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a stronger understanding of what it takes to get your app onto the App Store so that others can download and enjoy it. Previously, you learned how to build and test an Expo application in your own simulator or device to ensure the latest version shipped to app users is working as expected. EAS Build allowed you to do this. It's a simple way to prepare and bundle a similar application version to the one that will be uploaded to the App Store. But now it's time to embrace the next step in the pipeline, which is uploading your build into the Apple Store. Similar to EAS Build, Expo comes with another tool called EAS Submit, which enables you to submit your app binaries to Apple Store. It's also a hosted service that Expo built to simplify the process and abstract as much complexity as possible. Let's begin by exploring the steps for submitting an application to the Apple App Store. Expo has put together a detailed guide to assist you on this journey, and you can access it via the official documentation link found in the additional resources. Let's outline the prerequisites that you need to complete before using the EAS Submit tool. The first prerequisite is to get a paid Apple developer account. Acquire this account by following the steps outlined in the provided Apple Developer Portal link. Once that is done, start the submission by building a standalone app with EAS Build by running the following command: EAS Build -p iOS --profile production. The next step is to make sure your eas.json file is configured properly for the production environment. To do so, let's review the various options available to you in the Expo documentation. Add a new top-level property called Submit, as depicted in the example code snippet. The JSON object under the Submit key contains multiple submit profiles, all with arbitrary names. This example uses the production profile. Each profile has two additional JSON objects that define a per-platform configuration, Android and iOS. For iOS, the most important properties are Apple ID, ASC Apple ID, and Apple Team ID. Apple ID defines your Apple ID username. ASC App ID refers to the App Store Connect unique application Apple ID number, and Apple Team ID is your Apple Developer Team ID. The final step is to run your terminal with the command EAS Submit -p iOS to initiate the submission process. The command is interactive and prompts several options for you to tailor the submission. In this video, you have learned about all the necessary steps to prepare your Expo application for submission to the App Store. You've reached the end of the Capstone project for React Native. Congratulations! By reaching this point, you've proven that you have the dedication to learn and apply a full range of skills for designing and creating a mobile application using React Native. This course is a culmination of the previous courses from the React Native program, specifically Introduction to Mobile Development, Programming with JavaScript, Version Control, React Basics, React Native, Working with Data, and Principles of UX/UI Design. The project in this course tasked you with building an app that not only required technical proficiency, but also asked you to consider the needs of app users in the real world and to satisfy these needs through empathetic design. The outcome was an app that should demonstrate certain functions and characteristics. Specifically, your app should welcome users with an onboarding page, feature a complete navigation flow, display data fetched from the network, and allow users to filter the information that is displayed. So now that you've almost completed the course, what comes next? Well, an important part of the learning process is to give yourself some time to reflect and think. Where are you in your journey toward becoming a mobile developer? What do you need to do to get closer to that goal? In the next step, you'll be invited to engage in discussion with like-minded peers so that you can share your thoughts and provide support. So be prepared to bring some ideas to the table, and let's get this course wrapped up.